Hello Internet, welcome back to Daniel's Online English. Today's video is part 2 of our look into weak forms. When should we use the strong form and when should we use the weak form of the word? First of all, what types of words can be weak forms? Well, we like to refer to these words as function words. You might think of them as grammar words. Words that only exist for the function of the sentence, for the grammar of the sentence, not so much for the meaning. In this video, I have divided the words into categories. These categories perhaps make it easier to learn, but I should stress again that the list is not conclusive. You may find some examples of other words that I haven't included. This is simply the words I think are most common.
Determiners.
When should you use the strong form of a determiner? I would recommend only using the strong form of a determiner if you're using it for emphasis. Here are some examples. A. This is a good English lesson, but there are others. This is a good English lesson. An. That is an excellent idea. That's an excellent idea. The. This is the best lesson I have ever watched. This is the best lesson I've ever watched. Some. I have some good ideas now and then.
Conjunctions.
Similarly, with conjunctions, you should only use stress if you want to emphasize the particular word. And. Fish and chips? Salt and pepper? Fish and chips. Salt and pepper. Guns N' Roses. But. It's a good idea, but I don't think we should. It's a good idea, but I've got some better ideas.
The verb be.
Am. I am an English teacher. I'm an English teacher. Are. Are you an English teacher? You're an English teacher. Be. This could be the best. Could be the best. Been. I've been listening, but I don't understand. I've been listening, and I understand. Is. He is my brother. He's my brother. Was. He was interesting at the start, but now he was interesting at the start and he still is. Were. Were you listening to the whole video? Were you listening to the whole video?
Auxiliary verbs.
Do. I do know his name. Do you know his name? Does. Does he know or doesn't he? Does he know or doesn't he? Had. I had listened. I'd listened. Has. Has he finished yet? Has he finished yet? Have. Have you finished? Have you finished?
Modal verbs.
Can. I can speak English. I can speak English. Could. I could listen but I would be bored. I could listen, but I'd be bored. Must, 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 must. You must listen. You might miss something. You must listen. You might miss something. Should, 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 should. You should listen. It's important. You should listen. It's important. Will, ul. Will, ul. I will listen. Great idea. I'll listen. Great idea. Would, ud. Would, ud. I would listen, but I'm too lazy. I'd listen, but I'm too lazy.
Prepositions and particles.
As, as, This lesson is not as good as the last one. This lesson is as good as the last one. At, at, Can you speak and listen at the same time? For, I use this camera for recording my YouTube videos. Of. This lesson is made of lots of examples. Than. This lesson is better than last. There. There was a good reason for all of this. To. Is he going to explain?
Pronouns and possessives.
He. He stole my wallet. He stole my wallet. Her. I thought it was her, but it was actually him. Have you told her? Him. I didn't tell you, I told him. Have you told him? His. Is. No, not what's your name, what's his name? What's his name? I don't know. I don't know. Our. This is not your classroom, it's our classroom. This is our classroom. She. She asked me, but you didn't. She asked me, but I didn't know. That. That is the best idea I've heard all day. That's a good idea. Them. Don't ask me, ask them. I don't know, I'll ask them. Us. Doesn't belong to you, it belongs to us. This planet belongs to all of us. We know the answers, but you don't. We know the answers, but we don't know what to do. You should have learned how to use the schwa. You should have learned, but it's okay if you haven't. Your. I am your teacher. I am your teacher. Who put this fish in my lunchbox? I really don't know who to ask. Okay, it's practice time. This practice is potentially a little embarrassing, so if you are bothered about that type of thing, I recommend doing this in privacy, perhaps in your home, or the bathroom, or the bus. The idea of this exercise is quite simple. In practice, it's a little difficult. But all you need to do is repeat the same phrase with me. The phrase is simple. It's 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4. 1 and then a 2 and then a 3 and then a 4. And then we repeat. The problem is it's going to get increasingly faster. So, music. And drums. One and a 2 and a 3 and a 4. 1 and then a 2 and then a 3 and then a 4. 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4. 1 and then a 2 and then a 3 and then a 4. 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4. 1 and then a 2 and then a 3 and then a 4. 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4. 1 and then a 2 and then a 3 and then a 4. 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4. 1 and then a 2 and then a 3 and then a 4. 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4. 1 and then a 2 and then a 3 and then a 4. 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4. 1 and then a 2 and then a 3 and then a 4. 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4. 1 and then a 2 and then a 3 and then a 4. Whew. So what's the lesson to take away from today's lesson? Well, I think number 1, if you can, use the weak form. Prefer the weak form, unless it's a negative sentence or a question, or you're giving special emphasis to this particular word. Secondly, don't try to identify every word you hear in a sentence. It's really difficult to differentiate between the different weak forms. Sometimes, because they all involve the schwa, they can sound identical. This is especially the case if somebody is speaking at speed. Thirdly, say them quickly. The practice exercise here is only practicing a small number of these weak forms, but it's just to give you an idea that you can race through the weak forms in order to get to the important words in the sentence, the meat of the sentence. Well, that's all for this video. Until the next time,